My name is Evan Deutsch. I'm the Program and Outreach Associate for the Center. And we host these talks on a weekly basis at the same time every week, unless otherwise noted. And if you could just please sign your name in and your email on that guest sheet that's going around, we can put you on your weekly newsletter to receive updates about upcoming events and opportunities such as this. After this talk, we welcome you all to join us back at the Center. That's at 118 South Main Street for a more informal discussion with today's speaker. We have a lot of exciting upcoming events actually. Next Friday is our final Friday Speaker Series event of the fall. We'll be joined by CSE Advisory Board member Hal Colston. So we hope you can join us then. Today though, we're very excited to have with us another CSE Advisory Board member, Charlie MacCormack. Charlie is a former president and CEO of Save the Children, the world's leading independent nonprofit serving children in need. He has held a number of board positions with international development and humanitarian organizations, and is a former member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's now an executive in residence at Middlebury College and connects students with worldwide initiatives in global health, food and nutrition, economic development, and other challenges. And we usually focus on entrepreneurship in these talks, but today Charlie's going to share his insights about the concept of entrepreneurship and the potential influence of facilitating change from within established organizations. So, again, thanks for coming, and please join me in welcoming Charlie.
Since we don't have a huge audience, and not everybody knows everybody, we really only need probably 5 minutes to kind of do quick introductions, who each of us are, what our connection is with the college, and if interested, what your interest is in entrepreneurship.
Okay. I'm Chloe. I'm a junior, a neuroscience major. I have previously gone to a global health conference at Yale, and that was a wonderful experience, and so I'm just here to see what more I can learn about this world.
I'm Otto. I'm the first year here at Middlebury. I'm very interested in development as a topic and also a possible career path in the future.
I'm Mike Palmer. I'm an entrepreneur, a lawyer, and a teacher, occasional winter-term instructor at Middlebury. I'm developing some courses for the new Sustainability Entrepreneurship MBA program at UVM.
I'm Josh. I'm a freshman and just interested in the topic, possibly a career choice down the road.
Hi, I'm Margila, junior, East policy major, and I'm filming.
I'm Jane Thorne. I'm a Middlebury College employee for the last 25 years, and sort of was working with Charlie until they took him away from us in Monroe and put planning in Raleigh. But anyway, we still kind of keep contact anyway.
I'm Don from the Center for Careers and Internships. I've been interested in entrepreneurship since I was 18 and started a chimney sweeping business.
Hey everyone, I'm Tim Mosauer, also a career advisor at the Center for Careers and Internships.
My name is David. I'm a mid-parent and a local resident. I'm a former entrepreneur and a current entrepreneur.
Great.
I'm Kelsey Collins. I'm a super senior IPE major. I am an intern from Center, so I'm blogging today. I've had Charlie as a professor last year.
Lovely.
I'm Matthew. I'm a senior fed here at Middlebury.
I'm Phil, class of 1990 and 20 years in international relief and development before joining college advancement 2 years ago.
I'm Hannah, I'm a sophomore, and I interned at the Center for Social Entrepreneurship this summer, so that's how I got hooked on the subject.
Okay.
I'm Ariel. I'm a recent grade grad, and I'm currently working on a startup in town at a visa. I'm Molly. I'm a sophomore fed, interested in
I'm Liz Robinson, and Charlie tells me I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm going to learn about that.
Okay, perfect segue in a way. I'm Charlie MacCormack. I'm a 1963 graduate of the college, As Evan said, I'm executive in residence. I realized if there had been an executive residence at Middlebury when I was here, which there was not, but had there been, they would have been an undergraduate here when William Howard Taft was the President of the United States. So it's a sobering reminder that one has to keep looking to the future and not dwell on the good old days. I came here as a biochemistry major, and in fact was a biochemistry major. But Middlebury's focus on languages and international studies and study abroad, even in those days, and then what was happening in the outside world, the acceleration of the war in Vietnam, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the founding of the Peace Corps, et cetera, combined to, while I was here, lead me to decide I really wanted to work in international development and international education rather than in medicine. So I certainly wouldn't be giving this talk had I not gone to Middlebury, because I don't think there was any other selective institution probably in the U.S. that had as comprehensive an international culture as Middlebury did, even the universities at that time. So I certainly owe Middlebury a great debt. And essentially, ever since then, my entire career from the late 1960s to today has been in entrepreneuring. And in entrepreneuring, I define as rolling out an innovative concept within the framework of an existing larger organization. So it's entrepreneurship inside of an organization. It's not in distinction to entrepreneurship, it's simply the context. So rather than the startup context or the kind of early teen context, it's the context of an established institution of one kind or another, and taking an original idea and an important idea and leveraging some of the assets of an existing organization, at times certainly, to give the idea foundations and capabilities and assets that are very hard to come by in a startup or solo. So that's how I define entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurship in general, because in fact, to take my former board chair at Save the Children, Ann Mulcahy, who was a dozen years the CEO of Xerox, she completely transformed Xerox from a manufacturing corporation to a services corporation. So other than the name, there was hardly anything that remained of the company she inherited when she left. So entrepreneurship is not just a social sector phenomenon, it's also obviously a commercial and business sector phenomenon. But I'm going to focus my examples on the social sector. I would argue, as a matter of fact, that certainly for institutions and in a certain framework for individuals, there is no alternative today but entrepreneurship. The pace of change has become so pervasive and so rapid that to fail to adapt, particularly organizationally, but also personally, is to be left behind in one form or another. That's essentially technology-driven. When I was at Middlebury, there was certainly not a single computer on the campus. There was no access to computing. We all undertook our education without any intermediate technology at all. And now, a few decades later, obviously, the entire learning process is technology-driven. and on and on. And I won't go into the various impacts of technology on global change, other than to say, in addition to the rapid development of technology and the pervasiveness of technology, it's also created a global communications reality. So these two factors are the great driving factors, in my estimation, of the life of every single individual on the planet and every organization on the planet. The technology is changing and the scope is getting wider. So that's why keeping an open mind, and in fact an open psyche, is really crucial in the world of today and tomorrow. And that under it all is a sense of curiosity. A lot of the liberal arts kinds of insights, but curiosity, cross-cultural interest, openness, innovation, et cetera, et cetera. And not to get off, but I would argue that so long as the liberal arts continues to really produce these results in people, its graduates will in fact be dramatically more successful than those who go straight into engineering or math or whatever, and in essence kind of have a linear way of looking at the external world and looking at change. Having said that, and looking at the social sector and the nonprofit sector, there's lots of criticisms of nonprofits and lots of criticisms of international nonprofits of one perspective or another. What I have found to be the largest inadequacy is the normal failure to scale proven impacts and results. The problems are enormous in scale, often involving billions of people, certainly hundreds of millions of people all over the world, and most social sector organizations work on a little piece of that, stay with that little piece, and therefore in reality don't produce any macro change, and the real problem and the causes of the real problem remain. So one of the reasons why I am advocating a serious look at producing change from within organizations is because with all the downsides, which I will get to, it makes it 1,000 times easier to scale a successful innovation. If you've got an organization that already has global reach and so on and so forth, it can take forever to produce that from scratch. And in my opinion, when one looks at the social sector, and the part that I'm most familiar with, the international social sector, to this day, it's the Red Cross and the faith-based organizations, Catholic Services, Church World Service, Save the Children, CARE. These are all organizations that have been around. And you can, as a matter of fact, take the whole Boy Scout, Girl Scout movement and that sector. Typically, those organizations have been around for 50, 100, 150 years. I mean, it took them that long, and the point I'm making here, it took them that long to build a global infrastructure that allows them to produce results at scale. And it might well be that technology offers the opportunity to dramatically reduce the amount of time it takes now to deliver innovation and impact to hundreds of thousands of people. But it may not be true because very often on global change, things have to be customized, people are distrustful of outside ideas and so on and so forth. So if there aren't mediating organizations, it can still be hard to go directly from a good idea to technology to massive change. What are the elements of scaling? And these are also the elements, I think, of any sustainable impact, whether it's in a startup or a small team or a large organization or even a global organization. So a mission, interested markets, revenue streams, credibility and a brand, governance that works, innovative programs, and adequate systems to the task. So very often there's a tendency in early entrepreneurs to say, I've got a great new idea. Whatever it is, I'm going to use Skype to deliver early childhood education. And only through a lot of pain and suffering to realize that you need all of these elements. Who's going to pay for it? How much are they going to pay? What are really the outcomes that we're looking for? How are those outcomes going to be measured? Will anybody believe in my value proposition if they never heard of it before? How will the thing be legally governed? And how will all the office space and so on and so forth that are necessary to make this happen get delivered and paid for? So there's no way at any level to have a sustainable impact. In my experience, in general, unless it's a campaign or something that's designed to have a drop-dead date, but otherwise, you're going to find yourself dealing with all of this, and I'll get into how both time-consuming and risky it can be to produce this package in a way that really works. Okay, I'm going to say a few things about my own career as a serial entrepreneur. So my first job was as an assistant dean at Columbia University in their School for International Affairs. And Columbia decided, a group of 4 or 5 of us, to pull together a program that would bring the top 5 students from every school together into an international leadership program. So these were lawyers, physicians, engineers, scientists, on and on and on. In fact, as a matter to this day, hardly any other institution has really thought thoroughly about how global leadership relates to different professions and disciplines. I think even here in Middlebury, people might be hard put to say, how does physics or American literature or whatever fit into Middlebury's mission as the leading global liberal arts college in the 21st century. So in any case, at Columbia we put that program together, found a foundation that was willing to endow fellowships for all the participants in the program. Columbia gave us the offices and obviously the brand and lots of other assets, and it continues to this day. From Columbia, I went to what was then the Experiment International Living, is now World Learning, which is one of the largest international education and training organizations. And that was it. It was an international student exchange organization. And I convinced them that they should think of, what would I say, retooling that into academic form. So that they should take language learning, cultural immersion, global skills development, and award degrees around it. So that was the establishment of the School for International Training, which the campus is down in Brattleboro. And off of that, we established the world's first developing country study abroad program. And we began offering the equivalent of Middlebury schools abroad in Ghana and Mongolia and Bolivia and Senegal and so on and so forth, when no one else was doing it. And this is all in the early 1970s, by the way, so this is quite a long time ago in the higher education sphere. I then went to Save the Children, and in reality, like most organizations, Save the Children is essentially a platform off of which, in the Save the Children case, 37 different kinds of programs are offered, from adolescent girls' access to secondary education, to reducing child trafficking, to seeing that child safety is created in emergency situations like the situation in the Philippines right now. So in reality, it's a conglomerate with the 37 different products. And we thought constantly about what other innovations are there, out there, and needs and innovations that can be rolled out at global scale. And 2 or 3 examples are, back when I first went, not too long after Middlebury, for the program strategy, I created something called the Community-Based Integrated Rural Development. Save the Children had been a child sponsorship program. It was basically sending cash to children and families, and we transformed that into a community-based integrated rural development program that provided nutrition, education, health care, and so on to children as a whole rather than individual children. As I was leaving, we were just creating a program called HEART, which is an acronym for Healing and Education Through the Arts. Again, whether it's the Philippines or Syria or Congo or whatever, there are people working with children who have been traumatized by natural disaster and war. And there is currently no science, no research, no methodology, no training for the people who face these situations. So people working on child safety and child protection are essentially just thrown out there to figure out what to do. Here are these children, they're lacking shelter and food and water, and maybe they've lost their parents and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's gone on for years, and people are just experimenting. So we decided to really create a profession out around this dealing with child trauma, but particularly using the arts, dance, painting, sculpture, music, and so on, because what people had discovered out on the front lines was whatever else, those were the things that seemed to make a difference. But we put around it research, analysis, examining one approach as compared to another approach, on and on and on, which goes on to this day to find out what combos work best and how they apply to different cultures, et cetera, et cetera. But we also did it because we could see exactly how we were going to raise a lot of money for this program. Because we were going to go to galleries and arts centers and so on and so forth with the product that the children were producing, or even with the children, in order to generate financial support. So there was a natural audience, donor audience, to support an initiative like this, who were interested in the arts and interested in children, and literally physical spaces that you can go to. And I would say that's not a bad discipline if you're thinking about a new product. It's literally, what's the address of the people who are going to want to pay for my great idea? And, you know, do I know who they are, either their email or mail address? Is there a place where I can go find them, et cetera, rather than firing a shotgun into a darkened room. So, so that's another example. There's a very interesting story. We got this going, and along the way, Sotheby's and Christie's was found to have defrauded their audiences, their buyers, by in kind of controlling the auctions and inflating the prices, and they had to pay I don't know, $200 or $300 million fine and reimburse all the buyers for the inflated prices. But there were also funds left over, like $5 or $10 million. So we were asked by the courts, along with others, to put in an application to how we would use the arts for social good. So we put this in, and we got the $10 million endowment from Sotheby's and Christie's by way of the Second Circuit Federal Court of Appeal. Just to show you never know. Finally, for all of us here, I would take the Center for Social Entrepreneurship, but specifically its innovation in linking social entrepreneurship and liberal arts, because heretofore, by and large, social entrepreneurship has come out of business schools and schools of public policy, and not particularly being tied to the ideas of creativity, art, inspiration, et cetera, et cetera. And I could spend the whole lecture comparing what it would be like if John Isham and so on had just gone to Rutland and set it up on their own and said, this is a great idea, and or even had just set it up in the Middlebury Inn with no connections to the college and said, I really believe in this, this is a good college community, and the two or three of us are going to make this happen, as contrasted to the way it has happened under the umbrella and the safety net and so on and so forth of an existing organization. So you can kind of tick off, in regard to mission, markets, revenues, credibility, governance, program, and systems, what the center has as being Middlebury College's social entrepreneurship in the liberal arts college, as contrasted to three people going anywhere, Cambridge, Philadelphia, or whatever, and saying, I'm going to really make this happen. And I don't know what the survival statistics are, and I've never seen anybody deliver them, but I would hypothesize that the survival rates of good ideas that are housed in the right larger organization with the right package of these things is dramatically better than startups and small team efforts. So what is it? And I've obviously, what do you get? These things are highly interrelated, actually. But this is why I had, maybe we all have good ideas, but I had these various ideas about the International Fellows Program, the School for International Training, healing through the arts, etc. And they're all big and successful to this day. And I would guess, in fact, I don't think they could have been done outside of these nurturing institutions. But be that as it may, what did I get? Above all, credibility. Credibility in the donor world and in the marketplace. So when someone goes out from Columbia University, Middlebury College, World Learning, Save the Children, with just about anything, people literally both unconsciously and consciously say stability, reputation, not going to go under, whatever I'm doing will still be around 10 years from now, et cetera, et cetera. Probably been vetted, don't need to worry about fraud nearly as much as I otherwise would, and so on. So the benefits of an established, reputable organization and its name in the revenue generation is huge. And so that's the next element, drops us down into this. They've obviously all got their channels into the foundations, corporations, retail markets, audiences, and so on and so forth. So not only do they have a name, but they literally, again, they have the mailing lists and the email lists and the connections and the foundation names and the major donor friends, et cetera, et cetera. And in general, if you're starting something up, it is really hard to even get to those people because there's this long line from Harvard and Columbia Presbyterian and CARE and so on and so forth that's already made an appointment standing outside the door. So it applies not only to donors, but also if you need financing and capital to scale up. They have banks and they have assets and they have endowments, and let's just say you need a technology platform that costs $10 million to really do it right. And they probably already have it, but if they don't, if you need some variation on the theme, then the capital is there one way or another for that to happen. An existing delivery platform. So again, Middlebury has a whole platform for rewarding credit and offering courses and having extracurricular activities and reaching out to students and letting you know that this talk is going on and so on and so forth. All of which, if you're going to do something like that, you have to create on your own. And that healing and education through the arts, and Save the Children's now doing that in 47 different countries. The platform was already there, cost us nothing. I mean, literally, we're basically able to roll it out through the existing infrastructure using technology and so on and so forth, and technology-based app development. So to get something out in 40 or 50 countries, if you've already got paid for over the years the infrastructure, you're ready to go. Knowledge and research capacity. Again, in this example, I mentioned that Save the Children already had lots of analysts and so on, people, psychosocial experts who could set up the research protocols and write the articles and disseminate the information and so on and so forth. So very often any new idea is going to need that kind of tracking and validation and science. And it's going to, it's costly to do. And finally, a team. Lots of people that you can have a cup of coffee with and not feel isolated and frustrated and kind of marginalized in your one person or 3 or 4 person shop. So it's, I think, psychologically often a more satisfying human environment to be in. I didn't put it up here, but there are 1,000 administrative supports, lawyers, tech people, space purchasers and managers, fundraisers and marketing people, accountants, auditors. You start something up, you find then I mean, typically you have a good idea, you kind of package the idea, then you find yourself getting into all these other things, marketing, revenue generation, which then leads to accounting and audit, and before you know it, you're spending 5% of your time on your idea and 95% of your time trying to get legal status and trying to find money to pay for the audit and trying to do the accounts and trying to keep the office space heated and develop a plan and get the design for it and so on and so forth. So what you started out wanting to do and what's your real motivation ends up being 5% of the time you've got available to work on it, and the rest of it you're putting into creating an organization, which a lot of people have already created. So another very practical reason to take that off your table and really be able to focus on what you really want to focus on. So in the end, the main conclusion here is, in my hypothesis and experience, it's 1,000 times easier to sustain and scale your good idea from within an existing organization than to create it yourself. And frankly, whatever, I mean, I would, if I had a great idea, the first thing I would do is say, what parent organization is somewhere in this space that can give me all of this other stuff? Access to donors, access to capital, access to brand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because it'll take me 10 years on my own. I probably won't get there in the end. So why doesn't everybody do this? It's like the 7 deadly sins: bureaucracy, politics, traditionalism, distraction, and disempowerment. It's a little bit like irresistible force in an immovable object now. So we have this wonderful parent organization, Columbia University, Middlebury College, Save the Children, World Learning. When we find out, endless time in meetings, all kinds of people often opposing your idea, on and on and on. So the consequence of all these assets, scale, platforms, specialists, auditors, communicators, publicists, and so on, is big bureaucracy, one way or the other, because the communications and branding department have one way of looking at things, and the planning department has another way of looking at things, and the legal department has another way of looking at things, and the fundraising department has another way of looking at things, and within the fundraising department, the major donor people and the foundation people and the corporate people are all fighting with one another, and you find yourself, obviously, in the midst of these systems that are designed to let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, but the reality is the left hand letting the right hand know what it's doing is time-consuming and frustrating. And so not only does it take a administrative form, but it also has political roots. And they're often like roots below the surface, but people are protecting their turf and looking after their career plans and holding on to the way they've done things, et cetera, et cetera. And particularly in established organizations, because tradition is a strength. The Red Cross or Save the Children or the Girl Scouts or Catholic Relief Services sometimes have thousands of years of ways of looking at things, and they have thousands of years of ways of looking at things, and they're good at inculcating them on current generations, and therefore people don't often want to do it differently. Distraction. So the same kind of issues I described with a startup. You spend your time on stuff that doesn't have to do with what you're really trying to do. but filling in the forms and writing the planning documents and completing the performance appraisals and enrolling in the insurance plans and so on and so forth may take every bit as long and keep everybody from focusing on what you're all there to do. And then as a result of that, people feel disempowered, and their good idea, their beautiful child, is really being badly used by this organization. And I didn't put it down here, and so that all can make life even less fun than starting something up. And having fun in your life is a nice thing. So, and the other is not only personal disempowerment, but structural disempowerment. When your idea is one part of a larger system, and it may be a great idea, and it may even be successful, other people can decide whether it lives or dies based on variables that have nothing to do with your program. So a new president comes to Middlebury, decides they don't like social entrepreneurship and the liberal arts, they want something else, and they don't want that concept kind of clogging the communications channel, so off it goes. Even though it's a great idea, it's a successful idea, people have shed blood, sweat, and tears to make it happen, and for what you might call, higher reasons, a larger organization might get rid of it anyway. And I certainly did it to save the children. And there were a lot of things we did, street kids and so on and so forth, that we couldn't figure. Nobody could tell me how we're going to scale them and fund them and so on and so forth. Perfectly important programs that I just said got to go away because it just doesn't fit within our areas of organizational focus. So obviously, I'm certainly not making a case for either intrapreneurship or entrepreneurship, meaning having a good idea from within an organization or from scratch, because there are the obvious pluses and minuses of each. Having said that, in the end, the object of the exercise is to have a sustainable, scaled-up impact on organization. And I certainly, definitely feel that you're highly more likely to get that from within an organization with all the pain and suffering than trying to do it on your own, for the reasons that I said when I began. And I would also say if you definitely want to kind of assess the culture and politics, the bureaucracy of the organization that you're thinking about. If you're on your own, say, I got an idea, who am I going to go to? Or if somebody says, I like your idea, why don't you come? To figure out how you can protect your concept and your idea and your innovation and your people and your cause from these organizational forces, because it is possible to really improve the odds of success if you can figure out the right organization in the right place, the right political structure, and so on and so forth. And so I definitely would say on entrepreneurship, it's not an across-the-board silver bullet that will succeed in any decent organization. It's probably only 5% of the organizations that are out there that are right for anybody's particular idea, and that really represent the home that will really take care of it the way any innovator would want it taken care of. So really important to, if you have any discretion about that, to act in that way, meaning get your idea in the right organizational place. And if you find yourself in a place that's not happy, to figure out, meaning, like, it's really making life difficult for your idea and your team, figure out either how to make it less difficult or how to take it somewhere else. And lots of times, the leaders are really important in all of this. And so if Save the Children doesn't want street children, there may be other organizations that really do. And in fact, at Save the Children, we really work to make sure that the programs did continue, but individuals can do that too. So there it is. Entrepreneurship and its benefits and its costs. And so I'd love, for the time we have remaining, to hear any questions you might have, and thank you.
I'm thinking about donors.
Yeah.
What percentage of donors expect a financial return versus giving because they believe in it and they really don't want the money back?
Well, I would say in philanthropic organizations and nonprofit organizations in general, it's 99%, because they know up front they're not going to get the money back.
That's what I would think.
Right. So if somebody, and I do, when I make my contribution to Middlebury,
Yeah.
I certainly realize the transaction is not that, I'm going to get a 10% a month return on that contribution. I'm looking to the scholarship students and so on and so forth that will benefit from the contribution as my recompense, not cash.
Do you have any examples from your own career or otherwise of times when you became an entrepreneur and you developed the idea for it after joining an organization? So I think I work with students sometimes who feel like they have to have a big idea before starting work, but sometimes I think once students join an organization, then the idea develops once they work on good listening and figure out where the need is. So the way you described it was kind of like this, once you have your idea, you decide who to speak with.
Right.
But instead, is there a version of entrepreneurship when you're passionate about global warming, but you're not sure what your own big idea is yet? So you decide to go for a regular internship, and then once you join the internship, you kind of develop your idea at that point.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly much more typical.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know, I have found it, I've actually tried to dream up my idea first.
Okay.
And then go to organizations I thought would be good homes.
Great.
Because it gave me more control and agency in the deal that was happening. And, then that's my continued plan. When I wrap up here, I've got 2 or 3 ideas and the potential organizations I think that will benefit from those ideas.
Sure.
And so I have found if you've got the right win-win-win idea, and you literally go see somebody and say, this is exactly what you need next, or whatever, they're gonna be really interested. Having said that, most of the time, people get a position, and they work on it, and they see there's a need or an opportunity to do something differently. Maybe they see it for the first time, maybe they have the clout to make it happen, and so on and so forth. But, I spent the first half of this week at Monterey, and they have a huge career counseling service in environmental sustainability and global development and global health. They've got, 10 people who do career counseling in these spheres, and I think nobody has one. So why wouldn't, just in terms of, you could be in career counseling, people who have left, but there'd be no reason why you couldn't just video conference all those Monterey people into the Middlebury College students who want to know about careers and environmental sustainability.
Sure.
So you can easily find yourself looking around and saying, there's really a better way for things to be done here. Elizabeth.
I have a question. So why, Charlie, are liberal arts students, specifically Middlebury College alumni, perfect for entrepreneurship? Because I think they are. Just
Perfect for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I mean, are they natural entrepreneurs, do you think, many of them?
Well, the answer would be yes, I would say. They're smart, you're smart. I think looking to the future, pretty well attuned to the way things are going to be 5 and 10 years from now. Can write well and speak well and articulate ideas, and aren't afraid to try things and raise money and so on and so forth. My impression is that most Middlebury students don't want to put up with the deadly sins of organizational life that I've listed up there, and are the times that you students are in are more attuned to, what would I say, more individualistic life or action. And so it's not that people wouldn't be good at it. I think there are just a lot of people who don't want the context of an organization. In my time, that was just the way it was, and their jobs were out there, and things were more stable, and so, we knew that there were bureaucracies and so on and so forth. But even then, it was relative. You could work for the State Department or Citibank on the one hand, or you could work for World Learning or State Patrol on the other, which was the decision. I really looked at those choices. So there are levels of bureaucracy as well. Anyway, my feeling is the zeitgeist right now is more about individual action and small group action than dealing with organizational constraints. And personally, I think there may be an inconsistency between the goals and missions Middlebury students have and that worldview, but time will tell.
Yes.
It seems like there's been a growing number of incubators across the country and the world that have been fostering this sense of entrepreneurship and more individual or small group directed programming. And I wondered what you think the role of those incubators could be in further improving already established companies and kind of transitioning those entrepreneurs into entrepreneurs.
My impression is generally that those incubators tend to be very new technology based. And that's not a strength of entrepreneurship. I mean, I think if you have a technology that was only invented in the last 3 years or whatever, or you've reinvented it, that's a whole different ballgame, because I don't think existing companies generally are organized around technology incorporation. So therefore, I think incubators don't. This is not my sphere, but my impression is they don't see themselves really as typically trying to link existing companies to what they're doing, because what they're doing is technology driven. Now I will, in addition, but there's certainly companies, technology-based companies like Xerox and IBM have their own incubators. And so they've got all kinds of innovations getting cooked up inside, but they probably don't need the technology neighborhoods, that Boston has set up and New York is setting up, and obviously they have in Silicon Valley.
I once heard a speaker who had worked in tech for many years. He had become a tech millionaire by inventing little startups for games, and the company that made Farmville was, he created it, sold it, and then he got a job to work for EA, this big corporation, and they were trying to enter this market of small little tech games.
Right.
And he said that what he found was that the corporate structure was very limiting. So he started this award that each week he would give out the Juggernaut award, the little action figure for the person who had broken up the most corporate structure that week. And so it seemed like he was trying to marry these two ideas of entrepreneurship within a big corporate structure. And I was wondering if perhaps in your experience you could talk about some ways that you tried to do that, or that you saw others who tried to do that as well, to try to marry elements of entrepreneurship with elements with the structure of entrepreneurship in corporations and big organizations.
I would pretty much give the same answer I just did to Ariel. I think the rollout of new tech and innovative and disruptive technologies is rarely well supported within a larger bureaucracy. So I don't know a lot of organizations where people have taken a new innovation and scaled it within an organization. But I don't know, it's not a field I know. And so it may well be that, what Microsoft's product line is today, a platform, may be nothing but 15 or 20 ideas that people out in Redmond came up with. That were little startup innovative ideas, then the company had the capital and the brand and the sales force and so on and so forth to scale. My guess is what I just said is probably what happened there. But on the other hand, my hypothesis is that big companies are generally not technology friendly, innovative technology friendly. Kodak had all the patents on all the digital photography and so on and so forth, and couldn't use them, right? Couldn't put them to work. So they're now gone. And Xerox had all the kinds of patents on a lot of the different ways of using digital technology to make other things happen, even the three-dimensional production and so on. But they couldn't use it either, because the bureaucracy was too structured to figure out how to use the good ideas. So my argument would be in the technology sphere that big organizations and bureaucracies generally have a tough time, and that's why they have such a tough time in the technology sector. And as far as I can think, when I think of the big technology companies 25 years ago, HP, and they're gone. The ones that are around, Google and so on, didn't exist 10 years ago. But in the social sector, which is the concern of the Center for Social Entrepreneurship and myself, that's not a technology-driven field. There's some technology is important and more important, but in the end, it's about changes in human behavior. And although some of that happens through technological communication, a lot of it is still based on person-to-person interaction and physical activity. If you're trying to deal with food or medicine, and of course the big question is about teaching and learning. Does teaching and learning require how much and what kind of face-to-face engagement will be required? But if you're doing emergency response, when you're looking at Cebu in the Philippines, that's not amenable. You can't beam the food there or the water, et cetera, et cetera. So I think social sector innovation and scaling still is that organizational infrastructure is still pretty helpful to most of those kinds of ideas.
So I think we'll have to end here, just to be respectful of everyone's time. But as I mentioned, Charlie will be joining us back at 118 South Main Street, which is just down the hill there, right after this. So if you can make it, we'd love to have you. And
they have a Keurig coffee machine.
We do.
Yeah.
Innovation that is not one to
And
make
it makes
mountain
tea and cocoa too.
yeah, does it all. So, but thanks again for coming, and let's just give Charlie one more round of applause.
Yay.